It is no secret that status is something men seek and women desire men with status. And is it actually true that women, generally speaking, put a higher import on status in a potential mate of the opposite sex than men do? And how can you increase your status externally but also work on it internally? The latter, which by now you should know, has my preference. Let's cover the first question. Is it actually true that women, generally speaking, put a higher import on status than men do? Women have evolved specific preferences for men who have resources to offer. We covered a fair bit of this in the previous videos in this attraction series. That if an ancestral woman had to choose between two men, one that shows great generosity to her with his resources and the other whom is stingy, all else being equal, the generous man would be more valuable because he'd be more likely to share food, to sacrifice his time, energy and resources for the benefit of the children, and thus aiding the woman's reproductive success. We covered the parental investment theory that predicts two things. First, the sex that invests more in its offspring will be more selective when choosing a mate, and second, the less investing sex will have intrasexual competition for access to mates. Whether you look at it from the initial investment per gamete, the fertilization, gestation and breastfeeding period, there is no denying. Sex investment for women is much higher than for men. David Buss, in his highly scientifically backed book Evolutionary Psychology, writes, "Women desire men who command a high position because social status is a universal cue to the control of resources." He explains that along with status comes better food, more abundant territory, and superior healthcare. In other words, a higher social status bestows on children social opportunities missed by the children of lower-ranking males. But you might wonder, is it actually true that women, generally speaking, put a higher import on status than men do? Friends, there is this international study done in which participants in 37 cultures rated the variable preference for social status in a marriage partner in the context of 18 other variables on how desirable it would be in a potential long-term mate or marriage partner using a 4-point rating scale ranging from 0, meaning irrelevant or unimportant, to 3, meaning indispensable. The author of the study mentions that the importance that women grant to social status in mates is not limited to the United States or even to capitalistic countries. In the vast majority of the 37 cultures considered in the international study on choosing a mate, women valued social status in a prospective mate more than men. This was regardless of whether it was a communist or socialist country. In Brazil, women valued status 40% more. In West Germany, women valued status 38% more. And in Taiwan, women valued status 63% more than men did. Another more recent study is done with Tinder. In their study, 3,600 real Tinder users in Ghent, Leuven and Brugge, which are 3 cities in Belgium, received a right swipe by 24 fictitious profiles created by the authors of the study. Friends, these fictitious profiles differed only in their education level, which was randomly assigned to the profiles. And here's the interesting part. It has been found that women on Tinder indicated interest in fictitious profiles with a master's degree, brace yourself guys, 91.4% more often compared to fictitious profile with a bachelor's degree. Almost twice as much. Contrarily, men on Tinder indicated interest in fictitious profile with a master's degree only 8.2% more often compared to fictitious profiles with a bachelor's degree. I'd be remiss not to mention that there is an alternative explanation for why women prefer men with resources. I didn't know this one existed, but came across it through reading the aforementioned book. It is called The Structural Powerlessness, also known as Sex Role Socialization or Gender Economic Inequality Hypothesis. The gist is as follows. Because women are typically excluded from power and access to resources, women seek mates who have power, status, and earning capacity. So women try to marry upward in socioeconomic status so they can gain access to resources. We live in a world where in many fields women start dominating the educational system and therefore have more potential to out-earn and certainly outrank men in socioeconomic status, which has many benefits and ramifications for society as a whole. Contrary to the aforementioned sexual hypothesis, which I by the way do not buy into. In a study, successful women expressed an even stronger preference for high-earning men than did women who are less financially successful. So there you have that. But I'll cover that more in depth in another video, perhaps the alpha female video. Now, before I explain to you how you can increase your status, I want you to know that there is a book on which I've created a video summary, The Status Game. In that book, the nature of status is explored thoroughly, so be sure to subscribe to watch that video and learn more about status through a closer look in its ever-changing form from an evolutionary perspective. So, how can you increase your status? It is well known that men high in status and resources are more likely to marry. Also, their selection pool of women is bigger than those who have lower status, due to the fact that men who have that which most women want, such as status, power and resources, are better able to successfully attract women that men prefer most. It is not too difficult to imagine why people fake being high status. I'll cover some of the easiest way men typically do this and also how women fake their status in a second. Several studies show that physically attractive women do indeed tend to marry men with higher incomes and occupational status. And as mentioned in the previous video, most men place a premium on youth and beauty in a mate, whether consciously or subconsciously, but not all men succeed in achieving their desires. When you lack status, your selection pool is limited, and you may have to settle for less than your ideal woman. In studies of deception tactics, men are more likely than women to inflate their status, prestige, and income to potential mates. It's also been shown that men experience the emotion of envy more than women in response to mating rivals who have higher status and greater financial resources. The brutal truth regarding limited pool for mate selection is also true for women. But instead of being low status, which as we saw before is less important to men, women who are less attractive, physically speaking, also have a more limited selection pool of potential mates. What I'm going to mention next is the more external parts on how to increase your perceived status. Guys, I'd much rather have you work on the internal parts which come forth from a genuine place, which we'll cover after the external part in just a second. So what's a quick solution for females? Enter the consuming market, where you can buy push-up bra, breast padding and high heels, or get makeup to enhance your perceived skin quality, or as some do, surgically enhance your looks. These are all ways which primarily women use to enhance their physical looks. But what's the solution for men, you might ask? You see men purchase fake luxury items to deceptively enhance their social status. Think of counterfeit watches, for example. Also, another interesting thing, men are more likely to lie about their height, whilst females are more likely to lie about their weight. In the book The Consuming Instinct by Godsod, he mentions that the universal Darwinian drive for males is to seek status. He writes, "This is the biologically based adaptive drive as it caters to women's preference for men of high social standing. However, there are many ways by which this overriding goal can be achieved. In mate selection, women must deal with the problem of identifying and correctly evaluating the cues that signal whether a man actually possesses a particular quality. As mentioned in the previous video, both men and women use clothing as a form of sexual signaling. Women are much more likely to use their attire to highlight physical attributes, and men are correspondingly more likely to use clothes as a status symbol. If you think that these are shallow ways to measure your status, you're right. But doesn't mean we don't do it. It is evolutionary wired in the human animal. But once we become aware of these things, we might supersede and override these deep forces within us and rise above them. What about cars, you might wonder? Does driving a more expensive looking car make you more attractive to the other sex? I'm not gonna explain to you what it does to your testosterone level, we'll cover that in another video. Michael J. Dunn and Robert Shirley, hope I pronounced it right, they took photographs of men and women of equal attractiveness seated in one of two cars of varying prestige, a silver Bentley Continental GT or a red Ford Fiesta ST. They then asked men and women to rate the attractiveness of the opposite sex targets in either the high status or low status car. And you guessed it, women would assign a higher attractiveness score to the same man when he was seated in the Bentley as compared with when he was seated in the Ford Fiesta. But what about the woman? As mentioned before, men cared much less about a woman's social status. Their elicited attractiveness ratings didn't differ significantly. So drive a hot car and you will be perceived as hot, but only if you are a man. There are also many other studies that show women evaluate men who possess high status items such as luxury high prestige cars and luxury apartments as especially attractive potential partners. Friends, there are many more other external ways to show your high status. Think of body language, vocal tonality, and a plethora of different products. I'd much rather have you focus on the internal parts, on your character, your principles, on what you stand for in the world. The external part will take care of itself, so you don't have to indulge in manipulation and faking a lifestyle. Become a man or woman of character, honor, and integrity. So, how do you actually become more high status? There is a big difference between perceived status and actual status. It is dependent on what metric we use to measure status. Here is a great way to enhance your status. Show that you are useful to the group in which you seek to gain status. Will Storr in his book The Status Games explains that you can do this in two ways. First, by being successful, demonstrating knowledge and skills that benefit others, and second, by being virtuous, demonstrating beliefs or behaviors that serves the group's interest. Will Storr also mentions that there are multiple status games. A book summary of it is already recorded and edited, just not uploaded yet. He mentions that in dominance games, status is coerced by force or fear. Mafias and armies are dominance games. In virtue games, status is awarded to players who are conspicuously dutiful, obedient, and moralistic. Religions and royal institutions are virtue games. In success games, status is awarded for the achievement of closely specified outcomes, beyond simply winning, that require skill, talent, or knowledge. Corporations and sporting contests are success games. If you want to gain status, my friends, learn to collaborate with others, advance towards your goals in a way that enhances the lives of people around you. Become more competent, and as much as you want quick results, don't start manipulating and bending the fabric of reality around you. You might enhance yourself in the short term, but in the long term, you will lose. Friends, sheer hard work is still proven to be one of the best predictors of past and anticipated income and promotions. Again, become more competent in what you do. Work hard, you will achieve higher levels of education and status. You'll achieve higher salaries and more promotions than the lazy people around you. By the way, I'm not making the case that getting a formal education is the best thing you can do to earn money. I could even make a case why going to university is not worth it for many professions. And I'm saying that fully aware of the fact that I got a university degree with which I'm truly happy, and I do it all over again. So if you want me to cover my view on that matter, let me know in the comments below. Industrious and ambitious men secure higher occupational status than lazy, unmotivated men. And friends, I get it. Dating is not easy, not for women nor for men. It's easier for women at a younger age, but harder as they age, and for men, it's difficult when they are younger, but gets easier as they get older. Also, one leg that males have up on females, and I really feel for females in this matter. Males can increase what the other sex is looking for by hard work, and females have less control over what men look for, generally speaking. If you want me to make a laid-back podcast style video about that, let me know in the comments below. You can watch the most recent video of this channel here, and the next extraction video over here.